Welcome to The Nose. Kyone Wolf is off today. John Dankosky is off today. Executive producer Katie Tolarski is off today. Tweetmaster Greg Hill is off today. Producer Betsy Kaplan and I are driving this show like a futuristic train across a frozen, deserted landscape. In the back are our interns, Josh Nalea and Lily Tyson, plotting to make a forward surge and seize the throttle. In the middle are today's panelists, enjoying some aqua-farmed sushi and some protein bars. Jim Chapdelaine, guitar hero, cancer activist. If he's not producing your new Bro Step Shroomadelica CD, you've made a serious tactical error. Tanisha Dugan from the Heartbeat Ensemble, where it's a word for the person who provides the conscience, the soul, the propulsion of purpose. What do you call that person? The heartbeat. Jim Chapdelaine is producing her new post-metal freak folk CD. Irene Papoulis, educator and fashion icon from Trinity College. Jim Chapdelaine is producing her new ambient screamo CD. Those are all sort of genres. All right, so last night we gathered at my house to watch a movie. But let me, first of all, introduce this segment. This segment we're calling 13 Ways of Looking at Captain America because we did gather last night to watch Snowpiercer. Entertainment Weekly says Snowpiercer is undoubtedly one of the buzziest films of the summer season. It's got stellar reviews, a cool underdog vibe after becoming a huge blockbuster in South Korea, and it stars Captain America himself. It's going to be debuting at Real Artways next Friday, January 25th. So if you want to go see it with a big theater audience, that's one of your options. Wait until a week from today and go to Real Artways. But you can also, because of this very unusual multi-platform style of release, even though it's kind of a big movie that's doing reasonably well, they made the rather unusual decision to release it into theaters onto big screens and at the same time release it to video on demand so that last night in my house we could all watch it on a TV set. Whether this is a good idea or a bad idea is difficult to say. It stars Chris Evans, who does play Captain America, a bunch of other actors, some of whom you'd recognize, like John Hurt and most especially Tilda Swinton, Octavia Spencer, who you know from The Help and other movies, and Ed Harris. In 2014, an experiment to counteract global warming causes an ice age that kills nearly all life on Earth. The only survivors are the inhabitants of Snowpiercer. Snowpiercer. He's the train. No. A massive train powered by a perpetual motion engine that travels on a globe-spanning track. So we meet them 17 years after they've had to board this train that they can never get off. It's like Charlie and the MTA, but they're a lot colder outside. And there's sort of a class warfare starting. So we're going to quickly turn over a series of rocks. Is the film successful? Even if it's not, what issues does it churn up? And what about this unusual release pattern? And we'd love to hear your phone calls, too. If you're aware of any of this or you have questions or you wonder what in the world we're talking about, 860-275-7266. 860-275-7266. So Irene Papoulis, as you were kind of settling down into your seat last night, you said, you usually, actually it was after the film, you said you usually don't like movies like this. You usually don't watch movies like this, by which I think you mean sci-fi summer action thrillers that have lots of axe fights in them with blood dripping off the axes. But this is a movie that attempts to have a brain, right? It's an action thriller with some intellectual pretensions. How did that work for you?
Let's see, mixed. I mean, I would say it's a movie that has Tilda Swinton in it too, which to me was the biggest reason why I was drawn to it and attracted to it.
Tilda Swinton told you to jump off a bridge, would you do that?
Yeah. Exactly. And if she was in an action movie, and I always think whenever I watch a movie and people are talking about it and I have my reaction to it, whatever it may be, I always think, what am I looking for in a movie, and what are other people looking for in a movie? So, I thought it was there were parts of it that were interesting, and I thought about what it was trying to do. So that's what when I watch a movie, I'm thinking like, what's it trying to do? What's it trying to instill in us? What's it trying to get us to think? And part of me with the long, violent fight scenes and everything just says, like so many women, I'm sure. Is it only women who say this? No, not only women. But I just say, why? Why do we have to have these long, and it costs millions and millions of dollars? I thought some of these special effects were great and really interesting, but I just feel like I don't necessarily want to see the fights. How many times do we have to see those fights? But I don't know. That's just my first thought.
The money they spent on axes alone, that part of the budget is just there's just a lot of axes in this. So, well, what about that, Tanisha? I mean, in some ways, if you take that out of this movie, what you then have is this long kind of Antonioni-like, meditation where this train is
that sounds good to me.
Nobody's going to see that movie, are they? Except for Irene.
Right, exactly. Well, it's funny because I was, I'm not a comic book gal. And I think that, if you look at graphic novels and comic books, the fights are a part of the story. And so without them, I don't know if it's a comic book or not. I thought the fights were lovely. I sort of love... how
Wait a minute. You thought the fights were lovely.
I did. I thought they were beautiful.
I love the fact that somebody just described an axe fight as lovely.
But I know what she means.
Yeah,
though.
no, they're well
Okay, so
choreographed.
could you explain that?
Crouching
Both of
Tiger,
you, or-
Hidden Dragon,
well,
right?
it's
Okay, so it's like a
exactly my
dance.
point.
It's
No,
an
the-
orchestration.
That
Exactly
was
my
lovely.
point.
But okay, so go. All right, so
And I think that Asian directors have a really wonderful sense of fight scenes. It's sort of a part of their film culture, and you see that in this film. And they were kind of beautiful. I mean, they
Beautiful
were maybe
because
perhaps
agree.
long.
was it like the movement of the bodies,
Absolutely.
or
They were dances.
It's a dance.
They were
yeah,
dances,
yeah.
yeah.
I think they're a comparison. I mean, since Crouching Tiger, anyway, we've become aware that Asian directors have, as Tanisha says, this kind of balletic sense of what a fight can be that exceeds just the normal two guys with the normal axe fight.
That would make it. That's what gave it sort of the Asian culture vibe, was the fight scenes, is that they were so well orchestrated. And when you think about it, they were not really particularly gory given today's standards. There was comic book splatter. It was very much a panel out of a comic book. And so that's, for better or for worse, I panicked on Wednesday night. I knew I had a long session yesterday, so I watched it Wednesday night. And I thought, I think I'll go tomorrow and I'll watch this again. and the second time I watched it, and I'm probably the only person who will watch it twice.
I don't know about that.
I'm not
agree.
sure. Maybe not. But I watched it as a comic book, and it's much more effective if you watch it as a comic
So
book
what does
rather
that
than
mean
a movie.
exactly? Watching it
Well,
as a comic
I
book.
put different standards on it.
Less standards.
So I was looking at these film, the way he was framing shots, very much like a comic book. The way Jack Kirby, who is an iconic comic book artist, would steal from cinema, and now cinema's stealing back. So it's sort of this big circle.
So it's the visual. It's the visual of the movie that is
There is
pleasing to you.
partly a visual, but unlike a typical science fiction movie, there was a lot of exposition. There wasn't just big, giant, clanking machines trying to kill each other while Shia LaBeouf was, trying to get the girl. In fact, I don't even think there was a love interest in the entire thing.
No, there was a remarkably unsexy movie. But Tanisha, I don't know about you.
Say what you will, but that was a pretty hip train.
It was a very
It was a hip
train.
train.
And that was a long tunnel.
It was a long tunnel, yeah. All right, so yeah, you don't have to be Fellini to figure out the symbolism there. I withdraw that remark then. But Tanisha, one thing that I think maybe that you're feeling, I sense that you're feeling, it's a feeling that I have too, is I kind of now do need to see this on a big screen, because I felt like the visuals that are there are not really. I mean, I have an okay sized TV set, but I need a big screen for this, right?
Absolutely. For the visuals, and also, I mean, you're a sound guy, and something that you said last night that I was like, so true. The sounds of the film are unusual. And so to be able to hear those on a sound system that is surrounding me, I think will add to, the aesthetic of the film in general. So I think it is a movie that I personally, and I know the boys in my life will want to see in, on the big screen.
Usually when I see like a sci-fi trailer, and I see they usually show a bunch of them in a row because they're catering to a particular audience, I can actually identify the explosions. And it's like, oh, I know what library that came from. Oh, I know that. Hey, they used the same explosion in 2 trailers in a row. And I find that distracting. And this was not a sonically bombastic film. There was a lot of metallic sort of radiation in the background that I thought was very clever.
See, this is sort of like when I went to Europe with Steve Lashover, who's a photographer, and he saw everything that I didn't see. And if you see a movie with Chapdelaine, he hears everything that you don't hear. I mean, I think that that kind of stuff because your ears are so tuned to it. It's really interesting to hear.
And there's like a piano playing while there's an axe fight.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
and
And
in
it's
a
very
sort of
important to have a
non-ironically.
cellist.
That you didn't think was beautiful. Let me just grab a quick call here. Tim in North Haven has now seen the movie 7 times, so he can tell us more about it.
No, just once, but I may have to go see it again because I can't tell if it's the most brilliant thing I've seen this year or the worst movie I've seen this year.
Interesting. That's
No.
interesting. I like that.
I think we're all juggling those ideas.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When your panelist said that the comic book feature, that makes a lot more sense to me. But how about when he's sitting there? I won't spoil it for anyone, but when Chris Evans was explaining the hunger when they first got on the train, I couldn't believe what he said. I burst out laughing so hard, and he's standing there crying.
Yeah.
How to explain. And just the visual, it was visually spectacular, obviously preposterous. So I really don't know what to make of this film yet. I definitely have to go see it again.
Wait. What part of that is not believable?
No, I mean that is a problem that I had with this movie. Is that one of the big kind of emotional deliverables? And I'm with Tim. We won't spoil it for you, but it is meant to fall on you like a piano dropped from an airplane. And instead, it's kind of like it almost seems like a Monty Python thing or something. Really, it does it to me anyway.
Right.
It didn't hit me the way it was supposed to.
But I think it has to do with, Chris Evans, I think of him as sort of a cardboard cutout. He's very handsome, and this is not necessarily
Right.
his thing.
Daniel Day-Lewis could have sold that one.
Right, and I think he was stretching himself for sure in that moment, and we all didn't feel it because of that.
Yeah.
The stars to buy into it, and they got some good name stars. So, obviously they believe in it.
Well, you can hire anything for anybody.
true.
My case in point, let me...
It's for walking.
yeah, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, let me introduce Mr. Liam Neeson. Come on out, Liam.
Certain set of skills.
Right, thanks very much for your call, Tim. But Irene, I want to go back to you for a second. Okay, so this movie wants to be a lot of things. It wants to entertain us in the mindless way that we like to be entertained in the summer, and you don't. But it also wants to be a meditation on socioeconomic inequality, on haves and have-nots and one-percenters. It's hard for me to watch this movie and not even think about the humanitarian crisis at the U.S. border right now. There's some of that in there somehow.
Climate change?
In fact, let's hear Tilda Swinton. She's trying to sort of lay it down for the people in the back. It's a pretty ham-fisted explanation that this movie tends to go through about what socioeconomic inequality is all about. I think we have a little bit of Tilda on that.
Would you wear a shoe on your head? Of course you wouldn't wear a shoe on your head. A shoe doesn't belong on your head. A shoe belongs on your foot. A hat belongs on your head. I am a hat. You are a shoe. I belong on the head. You belong on the foot. In the beginning, order was prescribed by your ticket. First class, economy, and frail orders like you. Eternal order is prescribed by the sacred engine. All things in their place, all passengers in their section, in its own particular, preordained position. Now, I belong to the front. You belong to the tail. When the foot seeks the place of the head, a sacred line is crossed. Know your place. Keep your place. Be a shoe.
Actually, we made a mistake. That's actually Sarah Palin on her Facebook page. That's not. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That's a joke. So Irene, this movie it has a lot of ideas about socioeconomic hierarchies, about climate change, and really about leadership too. I mean, one of the real questions is: can a brute force revolutionary, like the character Chris Evans play, when he overthrows the existing order, can he lead? I mean, I'm not saying that this is expressed at the level of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, but it's in there somewhere. So as a person who goes to movies looking for ideas, did you find any worth having that were dumped onto this high-speed train?
Well, I found some, the ideas, and I think it's interesting because that message, that hierarchies are really painful and wrong and dysfunctional is, I just feel like I've heard that so many times. On the other hand, there's some movies that could explore that exact idea. And of course, I love the way Tilda Swinton, as such a fan of hers, I just love the way she spoke those words. But I was feeling like, oh, come on, we know this. Give me something new. I was thinking in terms, but now I'm thinking as you're talking about as I'm listening to you talk about the movie, I'm sort of thinking I'm just completely putting the wrong lens onto it as I was watching it, and that makes me want to watch it again too. Because if I'm watching it for an interesting idea that I've never heard of, I'm probably not going to get very far.
This has become a blockbuster in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Just with us here, we're going to see it dozens of times.
We only paid $7.99 last night.
I don't think
Tanisha and I are going to lay some serious money down.
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, and so if I'm looking for emotional, like, what is their emotions? What's their emotional reality like? What is the and so I'm thinking about those kind of things, and maybe I saw a couple of threads of certain things in some of the characters, but I think it's really, I'm just sitting here thinking it's really interesting to say, all right, I'm going to go to a movie and look for the aesthetics. I'm going to look at the fight scenes as dances. I don't think that has ever occurred to me, watching a movie. And I think that's a really interesting, why should I be so fixated on just, the plot and the ideas and what it's telling me about Western civilization? Because I don't think it has that much to tell me about that. But except that it's sort of an exercise of going through the things that we know about what's wrong with Western civilization. But I don't know. I think I love the idea of now saying, all right, and how is it framed to look like a comic book or other things that have, comic book things. And I don't know. I suddenly want to see it again.
I like the idea that Sandra Bullock could keep it above 50 miles per hour the entire show and didn't let up.
There is a little bit of that. I hadn't even thought about that one. Although this movie it has in it, right, all these quintessential train movie motifs. Although, one of the problems that I had with it was there are movies, whether it's Hitchcock's The Lady Vanishes or what is it, Breakneck Pass? What is that Charles Bronson movie where you're really sort of aware you're on a train?
There's that kind Runaway Train.
Yeah, there are movies like that. I don't know. This was such a sort of Japanese bullet train that I didn't really feel like I was on a train a lot of the time. I had to be constantly reminded I was on a train. But yeah, go ahead.
And then they do a good job of that because every now and then it's like, and we're almost falling off the tracks. Everybody hold on.
And some beautiful shots, which we do want to see on a big screen. I know you were kind of interested in this whole decision to release it this way, to do it on the big screen and also do it for video on demand. I mean, they're rolling the dice here. Why should I drag my story behind out to a movie theater if I can pay $8 and watch it at home? What do you think about that now?
Well, I wonder how much it really truly is a strategy, or if that's the spin of the story, because the rumor mill has it that Harvey Weinstein wanted to cut 26 minutes off of the movie, and the director said no, and this was in effect his punishment for not, cutting the 26 minutes off. So now, yes, we're getting sort of the story of this was always, the distribution plan for this film, and we want to try something cutting edge. I don't know how true that is, but I do think, from my anecdotal perspective, that doing it this way is great because you can sort of see it on the small screen, test it out. It's like going to happy hour before you buy the big dinner, right?
which you also did last night.
Right, exactly. You go to the happy hour, you go, okay, the drinks were good, the food was good, I think the service is all right. Let's go for the big dinner, and I do like that idea.
Yeah. I think it's so far the evidence suggests that it works. Not that they're posting huge kind of summer blockbuster numbers anywhere, but they went right to the top of the iTunes download list and stuff like that.
Although they are saying that those VOD numbers are equivalent to like a $2.2 million open.
Too, yeah.
And that's huge.
And I will say I knew nothing about this movie until it was pointed out that we might talk about it. And so we went to On Demand, and it's the very first thing you see.
Right.
So it's like, hey, I thought I was going to have to search for this obscure movie. And
no, it's got its own little
Comcast.
Right, it's got its own little Comcast rectangle.
Make less money from the video people? I mean,
absolutely.
They do, right? Like
but
a lot less.
But it's also a lot cheaper to distribute something this way. It costs a lot of money to deal with normal movie distribution.
So then maybe in the distributor's interest, it's not necessarily I guess it depends. In the director's interest, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, well,
where it is.
Well, the director might care.
Right. I think the artists absolutely care. I was listening to I forget, there was another Toni Collette, and she was talking about how she prefers when her movies come to film. So I think it matters to the artists because, and the director and the cinematographers, because to go to the theater, because he's worked so hard on these visuals. I want to see it 8 foot large,
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I could have found those 26 minutes.
I could have. I certainly could have found 13 of them, and probably I could have probably found 39. However, and so at the end, I don't even know. once again, I think I do want to see this movie again, which is sort of an interesting comment. And I think I'm completely with Tim. It might be the best. It might be the worst of the movies that I've seen this year. It's
So
sort
if
of hard
you
to
do
tell.
see it again, you have to look at it as if it were a graphic novel or a comic book.
Right.
But
not,
I actually-
not a movie.
I got that part the first time, actually. My question was I exhausted at the end to some purpose? Like, I was really tired at the end of this movie. But was there a good reason for me to be that tired?
And what would it be if there were? Do you know?
Well, I mean, I think it's the aesthetic. If it works, and I think it doesn't work partly because the character played by Chris Evans is so much the focus, so much the psychological focus, and so poorly realized that, and maybe whoever said that they just had the wrong actor, I think that was you.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe if Daniel Day-Lewis played that role, I'd have a whole different perception of it. But to me, the sense that he really has to get us from one end of the train to the other, and this has to be at some level also his personal journey. That just didn't work, and I don't think it's ever going to work for me. So, I mean, what I'm left with are all these aesthetic and kind of production considerations that have been raised by the other nose panelists, plus these fairly important messages. Can they all kind of flow together into something truly interesting? And I'm still open to that possibility, but I do think Evans is a poor choice, and that's a nice segue to the second part of this segment, because Chris Evans is best known, to the extent that he's known at all, as Captain America for 2 movies. But we got news this week that the next Captain America movie will feature a black Captain America. And
The movies or the comics?
no, it's the movie too.
That's pretty brave.
The
Look at
movie,
that.
yep, and that the new Thor, that from now on, basically, Thor is going to be a woman.
Now, is that in the movies or just in the Marvel
I think
universe?
so far that's it's in the comic books. I
Right.
don't think you can call 860-275-7266 comic book person and correct me if I'm wrong. 860-275-7266. But I believe that the only decision about Thor being a woman is in the comic books. But as the comic book creator Jason Aaron said, it's not she-Thor. It's not Lady Thor.
It's not Thorina.
It's not Thorina. It's Thor. It's Thor, and he's not a dude anymore. And, I mean, some of this is an attempt, right, to do basically what politics tries to do, which is, build a bigger tent, right?
Yeah, I think I do think so. I wonder how effective it is. They announced the Thor thing on The View, and I thought, that seems like a wildly pandering choice.
So desperate. And before, did they even think about how Odin is going to feel? I mean, this is my son for centuries.
He's got to build a second bathroom.
Right. This changes everything. You got to, the hammer has to be pink.
Right.
It's-
Is Loki a girl too, or
I
is
know.
it a
What happens with
brother-sister
Loki?
relationship?
Yeah.
See, but we're interested and we're talking about it, and maybe
Right.
sometimes change for change's sake. Just does begin a.
I
brand
can
new
tell you this:
conversation.
comic books collectors and readers, I think, are divided into trad, meaning traditional, and these sort of venturesome people. But this particular, I like the idea of a black Captain America. I think Daredevil was gay for a while. I forget, one of these guys. They've been playing with this form since the 90s, with like introducing characters. I don't know that any of them, any new characters caught on. So the only thing they could do is reimagine existing popular characters.
And this is a critique leveled actually by a writer at Wired who said, not only are they talking about both the Black Captain America and Thor as a lady, not only are they by definition replacements, forced to live up to legacies established by white male characters, both in the fictional worlds they inhabit and in the minds of the fans reading the comics, but they both got the job because of the failings of their white predecessors rather than on their own merits. Again, from the official press release about the new Captain America, Steve is the original, Steve Rogers is the original Captain America. I'm embarrassed that I know that. Steve's spirit is as willing as ever, but his body is no longer up to the task of being Captain America. Do I ever know how that feels? From the press release about the new Thor, no longer is the classic Thunder God able to hold the mighty hammer. I can't pronounce this Norwegian name, Mjolnir, and a brand new female hero will, that's the hammer, Mjolnir, and a brand new female hero will emerge worthy of the name Thor.
So then that begs the question, is the female hero like really hot, comic book exaggerated, voluptuous, hot?
Well, I was going to say,
and then isn't that just more
well,
very
I think
sexist?
it's all about what they
Yeah.
do with that character. I mean, because you could explore a female Thor in really interesting ways, or in really horrible, embarrassing, cringeworthy ways. Like,
What would
My
be
vote is
yes.
for Brienne, like in Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah, Brienne's great.
Yeah.
That's my vote. That Thor sort of.
I
looks
think
like her.
I saw a picture of her, and it looks like, okay, she collects Hello Kitty. So I don't think it's going to be like some macho or super. I think it's like
Irene, is that
people
what
are
you
going
boys'
to, yeah. I
fantasy.
mean, people like Colin are going to say, "Oh, she's a lady. Hi, Thor." You know, and that's a whole.
because that's what you do.
I hate being people like Colin. Well, when you say if they explored in some interesting way, what would constitute an interesting way?
Well, you know, that's the question, right? I mean, like off the top of my head, let's
A
see.
leaning
You know,
in Thor,
well, what
basically.
happens when women have power? You know, when bleeding in Thor, when women have power, yeah. And so she's gonna, is it going to be any different from male
But she's
power?
head of a
That's-
corporation. She has to be head of a corporation.
I
She
mean,
works
that's
for
what's
Facebook.
so interesting about her being a woman, right? Is like,
Yeah.
does she have to take on these more masculine attributes in order to do the job that her male self?
The real
Right.
Thor.
Exactly. Or are those masculine attributes, or
Right, or
are they
are they?
feminine?
That
Or
is the
if
question.
she says, "Let's have a discussion instead of fighting this time,"
Comic book
I mean, is
fans
that-
love that. They
Yeah,
love
right,
discussions.
right.
But this is really an age-old conundrum, right? I mean, it's the Thelma and Louise question: is the solution, to gender roles to give the ladies guns so they can blow up the oil tanker truck or whatever it is that they shoot in Thelma and Louise?
And what about the Vikings? How are they going to feel about this? I mean, the most macho, like marauding gang in history. And guess what? The Thunder God.
In a way, it'd be interesting to have, like a woman Thor who's exactly like the male Thor, and then there's another guy who's saying, "Let's all talk instead of fighting," or something like that. To sort of play with the gender roles and play with the stereotypes and expectations.
I think you
a
should
little
write
bit.
comic books.
Yes,
You should write comic books.
I'm sending this audio to Marvel. You may get a call.
Although you
I'm
wondered,
sure
would we buy it? Would we buy it?
Right,
You know.
right.
Yeah, and it really would depend how you did it. If you did it
So
right.
Thor will now have a book club. Basically,
I like that.
right?
Yeah.
And discuss, Norse mythology.
You were showing your gender.
I know, I'm completely
Right
doing
now.
that. I'm completely doing that.
Check your privilege.
Yeah.
All right, we have to take
Why
a little
don't
break.
men have book clubs?
They do. They
That's
do.
what I wonder.
Yeah.
They do.
Do they
Do
read
they?
and talk?
And
Not-
and
not
like
as
women
many.
book clubs, they
No,
never
in
talk about
neighborhoods.
books.
In neighborhoods, how many male neighborhoods have book clubs? That's what I want to know.
Mine does.
Does it really?
Yeah.
Your neighborhood does?
Yeah, they did.
Are you in it?
They did Ulysses last year.
Really?
Yeah.
They, not we, huh?
Well, I was in a cast from here to here, and I was in no frame of
couldn't hold
mind
the
to have a
push.
discussion. Yeah, I really
turn
did,
pages.
yeah.
Actually,
Ulysses. That's like, wouldn't a male book club would do that? Like,
Yeah.
let's read Ulysses,
Well,
so we can prove
we-
what macho men
I
we
have
are.
Well,
to tell you, I
that
got
is
the
so
monthly.
unfair.
I got
We-
the monthly notes, and
That is so unfair. All right, we have to take a little break. We'll come back after this.
For a runaway train, like a madman laughing at the rain, a little out of touch, little insane. It's just easier than dealing with the pain. Runaway train, never going back. Wrong way on a one-way track. Seems like I should be getting somewhere. Somehow I'm neither here nor there. Runaway train never coming.
All right, we're back. This is The Nose. Let me remind you that Tanisha Dugan is here with us. She's from the Heartbeat Ensemble. Jim Chapdelaine, a guitar hero and cancer activist and many other things as well. Irene Papoulis, educator and fashion icon from Trinity College. And so we're going to just jump one cartoon panel over from Thor and Captain America to Riverdale, where, as has been pretty well talked about this week, at least in one of the universes of Archie, Archie has given his life. Archie has died. He took a bullet for his best friend, who is a gay man and a gun control activist. And as I pointed out in Salon, this was done basically to give Ann Coulter a splitting headache.
I read that.
But
That's great.
But Jim, since you are the closest thing to a comics maven we've got here, I mean, how are you processing all this?
Well, I'm for it because when you consider the other Archie alternate universe, he would have, died in a slaughter at the Bundy Ranch, maybe. So
I'm not aware of that Archie comic book. But
well, that would have been a different, like
I know,
Archie
I
is.
understand.
Yeah,
Could have gone a different way. Sliding doors.
So this could have been. So if Archie's going to die, what a nice way to go. I wonder about how Jughead feels, and did Reggie actually pull the trigger?
Jughead apparently took it on the chin in 2008. He's having financial problems. I
really?
think I read that somewhere, actually. Literally, in this sort of adult Archie universe, Jughead
First
is,
of all, there should not be an adult Archie, ever. That's wrong. And
well, it turns out there wasn't one for very long.
Yeah, right. 4 years, I believe, right? I never read an episode, but I like the way they framed it. It's they sort of made a political statement and did a couple of things that are good for the world.
I think they didn't sort of make a political
Well,
statement.
they actually made one.
Very
gay politician, great. Gun control, great. Archie dead, great. 3 things right there. No more Archie, adult Archie. I don't want adult Archie.
Did they really have 2 alternative universes for him? One with Betty and one with Veronica?
Yes, they did.
Did I read that?
The very first Colin McEnroe show ever, you and I had a conversation
Yes.
about Betty and Veronica.
I do remember that.
That's
Episode
like
1.
having an adult universe for like Richie Rich or Baby Huey or something like that, or
Yeah,
all those
but-
sort of
Poor
weird.
Well,
version
it's
of
just
Richie Rich.
such a classic. He just could not choose, and nobody could choose for him. I think that's kind of interesting. You know, that there was just no way they could have said, okay, now he's with Veronica or now he's with Betty. It just wouldn't have worked. So I kind of like that as a choice.
Do you have anything that you'd like to say about Archie?
I have nothing to say.
I don't know why, but I sort of sensed you might be a pass on this particular
I am
one.
a pass on this
Well,
one.
for that reason, then you can go run point for our next segment. Our next segment has to do with a piece of audio that really did kind of go viral this week, and it featured a man trying to shut down his Comcast account. His name is Ryan Block. It goes on. The clip that's available, I think, is I have it here. There's 8 minutes of SoundCloud audio that you can listen to, but you're actually coming in on a conversation that's already been going for a while. Betsy, I think we have a little bit of this conversation, and it is sort of true that all you need to listen to is a little bit.
Are you capable by phone of disconnecting our service?
It's something we can do. I mean,
Okay.
rarely do we do it.
That's something you can do. I would appreciate you now doing that.
Okay. So,
Please proceed in disconnecting our service.
So, what is it about this other internet provider, this other TV provider, that's making it sound so much better than the number one TV service available?
I don't know. It's totally arbitrary decision.
Okay. So why not keep what you know works? What you know is a good service.
Because we're not doing that. So please proceed
Okay.
in
So you
disconnecting our
don't want a
service.
good service? You don't want something that works?
No, I don't. I guess I don't want something that works.
So why don't you want something that's a good service and something that works?
I mean, is this like a joke?
I should say that next season, Heartbeat Ensemble will put on a play based entirely on, it's a 2-person play based entirely on this conversation. In the spirit of Marvel comic books, Ryan Block will be a black woman played by Tanisha Dugan. So,
What's the backstory?
She's doing a lot of method right now. She hasn't really sort of worked all that out, but she's going very Brando on this. So, first of all, I think you sort of admitted that you couldn't really sit through the whole 8 minutes of this.
No, I mean, I did wonder if it was turned off or if he had to go to the store to turn it off. I mean, that was sort of like the cliffhanger. But after a while, you're like, okay, we're stuck here.
Right.
You're stuck at this impasse, both of you. And I feel for both of you because I understand where he's coming from, and I feel terrible for, the employee who feels forced to do his job to the point of annoyance.
Right.
And
I mean, we should say the employee, and there are parts of this conversation where the employee gets even more aggressive than he gets there. But the employee is, first of all, not being paid very much and looking at a screen in front of him which sort of tells him, A, what he has to say, and B, what things he can accept in order to move on to the next screen that tells him a whole bunch of other stuff. And, I mean, first of all, I also want to say I have had this conversation. I mean, I've tried to negotiate with a Comcast person who is in exactly that position, and I didn't even stay as patient as Ryan Block. I just gave up, but which is what they wanted me to do. I just want to say, too, we won't have a lot of time to talk about this, but as we go along, 860-275-7268. 7266. 860-275-7266 if you have something that you want to say about it. You can also tweet us, although Greg Hill will not be here to tweet back at you, at WNPR Colin. You know, when I listen to this, Irene, I do feel like I'm listening to theater. It does seem like maybe if Beckett were writing plays today, he might be writing one about, you and a Comcast service rep.
Yeah, I think, and that's why it went viral. I think for me, it was the attitude of the guy too, the caller, that wanted. He was so calm and sort of like, okay, let's just take it one step at a time. You don't want me to. And then on the other side, the idea that I felt like the guy seemed to be incredulous. Well, why? I want you to tell me why. And he said, I don't want to tell you why. It's my business. It's none of your business. And the other guy was incredulous. Like, how could you not want to tell me why? Why don't you just tell me, tell me something why you don't like it? And he said, I don't want to tell you why because it's my own business, And I think that's something, I'm reading this book by Dave Eggers that explores the idea of, it's called The Circle. It's actually a really interesting book. And it's, but he's sort of the sort of corporate world where everything is, and their slogan is transparency. So it reminded me of that. Everything has to be out in the open. And that's really the ultimate goal in this corporate world. There's no privacy because everything that you have is out in the open. And so it reminded me of that world because it's like, well, why don't you want to tell me why you want it disconnected so I can talk you out of it? Why don't you be more transparent about it? And he was just adamant. The refusal, the sort of calm refusal to do that, I thought was beautiful, and that's what made it into a Beckett play.
Jim, I want to hear many things that you have to say about this, but first, since you are our audio guy too, I think it's important to realize, just piggybacking on to what Irene said, is that Ryan knows that he's recording this.
He certainly does, and he's and I was really on Ryan's side, and then I listened to it again. I thought, like, Ryan kind of knows what he's doing here. Because it's being recorded, he is cool as a cucumber. And the other guy, even though we can't see him, there is somebody behind him with a highly charged cattle prod, poking him every time he's even inclined to surrender. And, my answer to all of that used to be, how do you spell your name? And I was C as in Chapdelaine, H as in Aptolane, A as in Aptolane, P as in Pedalane. And that would just frustrate them, and then they would hang up. But if I think any of us would have hung up 2 minutes into that and gone to the next rep. But I think Ryan's trying to make a point, and he made his point, and he was pretty cool, calm, and collected for and I don't think a single profane word was uttered.
No, on either side.
And that would have
totally
tested
on the
me.
workers' side for this one.
I sort of am too. I feel like
he's just doing his job.
It's a hard market out there, and if this is your sole job, and the customer seems willing to play ball,
right. If you don't want to hang up and then get to the next guy, because the next guy is not going to be like this guy.
He's really, how do you feel about the fact that Comcast then threw this guy under the bus?
Absolutely.
And publicly apologized, said, we are very embarrassed by the way our employees spoke with Mr. Block and are contacting him personally to apologize.
And give him the Employee of the Month award.
That's the thing. I think most of the time he's the Employee of the Month. He does what they really want their employees to do, except that unlike a lot of them, I think he really believes this too. I think that's part of the urgency in his voice, right?
Absolutely. I think it's definitely indicative of that corporate culture. I think that, the Brando and me, right? Who's to say there weren't 6 conversations and 6 phone calls before where he had rejection before he got to this one.
That's so sad.
But, it is what it is. It's not easy. I would never choose to be a salesperson or a telecommunications operator.
Well, and that's why when they said they were contacting him to apologize, I thought it's an interesting sort of slight misuse of language because it sounds like they're the ones who are going to apologize to him, as they should, for telling him he shouldn't hang up. Right.
So is this guy like the modern vacuum cleaner salesman? It's like desperate.
It is death of a salesman.
Right. It's just I just need the good leads. It's sort of Glengarry Glen Ross.
Well, although I think he has a different job. His job isn't really sales. His job is retention.
Keeping the sale.
And I've had conversations with this, and it is also a little bit of a 3-card Monte game too, because they'll be constantly sort of saying, well, you could do this, but you could do that. Or if we could actually add 4 things and your bill would go down.
Did he add stuff? Because I didn't hear him adding stuff.
That was not part of the conversation we heard. That is typical, though. Usually if you're having that conversation, they will bring up all kinds of things.
2 goats and a cow will send right to your house.
Until you realize that they're a lot more prepared for this conversation than you are.
Right.
Because they've had 25 of those conversations in the last hour, and they know things that they can offer you to confuse things. Well, I'm looking forward to the Heartbeat production. I would, if you go
And
Brando,
in that
too.
one, it's going to be, I'm going to get 40 acres and a mule from Comcast.
Exactly.
That will be how that ends.
And I think at a certain point you have to say to the guy,
You are a delivery boy sent by a grocery store to deliver a package.
You are the hat. I am.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, that's it. You could do the whole Hatfoot Tilda. You sort of wonder whether that Tilda Swinton speech from Snowpiercer is going to be some new Agincourt
it has
or something.
to.
I think it'll arrive.
I think anything done with dentures is enduring.
Bad dentures.
Bad dentures indeed. All right, we want to leave time for endorsements. I think I've done so artfully, so we'll take a little break. We'll come back. We'll have more. All right, so this is the part of the show usually where Chion Wolf thanks everybody, but Chion Wolf isn't here. A lot of people aren't here, so not that many people need to be thanked. It's just one of those summer Fridays where by the end of the day it's going to be like the original Alien movie. It'll be Betsy Kaplan and a cat walking around the building. But anyway, so it's quiet here today, but we do want to thank Betsy Kaplan for pulling things together and our wonderful interns, Josh Nalea and Lily Tyson, also for being with us today. And I think that's pretty much about it in terms of who needs to be thanked. I don't know who played Bill Curry today. I'd have to guess it was Tilda Swinton, but that's all I can say. With us today, Tanisha Dugan from Heartbeat Ensemble, Jim Chapdelaine and Irene Papoulis, regulars on the nose. Tanisha, on the basis of today's performance, I hope is going to agree to be a regular on the nose too. It's been great to have you.
Thank you.
You clearly know how to nose. You are,
I am a nosy one.
Yeah, you are a
for
natural.
sure.
So this is the part of the show that we've reserved for endorsements, things that you want other people to know about. So Jim Chapdelaine, would you like to begin?
I would, but I hope I'm not disappointing. I've been on the road a little bit, so my endorsements are lazy and probably catching up. So I'm endorsing John Oliver's Last Week because he can swear. And he's much more effective when he's profane. But I really think he's kind of coming into his own. And I'm very happy about that.
I will therefore put a piggyback onto that endorsement. I believe it's August 6th. Okay, so every once in a while I perform with CT Improv, which is this fabulous comedy troupe here in Hartford. And whatever I do it, I swear. And so I think it's August 6th at Billings Forge. I'm going to be performing with them. And somebody at one point, Hilda Miro one time tweeted for one of these things, "This is Colin McEnroe uncensored." And it is liberating to be able to swear, which you really cannot do on public radio, obviously.
Yeah.
All right.
You do it in principle for that?
No, but I feel very liberated. I feel like I can
Sure.
I can make certain points in certain ways that you just can't if you can't swear.
I do that at every gig.
Right.
It's nice to have a microphone. Also, the movie The Normal Heart, which probably people have seen by now. The Dirty Dozen Brass Band, which I had the good fortune of, they followed us at the Green River Festival. They were astonishingly good, and the bass player could easily be Bootsy Collins, and he's playing on a tuba.
What genre are they playing?
They play New Orleans kind of funk and go-go music, and they were fantastic. They've always been fantastic. Elvis Costello's done a record with them. They're legendary, and they lived right up to it. But the tuba player in particular astonished me.
Dirty Dozen Brass Band?
Yeah.
I don't.
And then this Thursday, the Shinolas are at Blueback, a rare outdoors gig for us. So Blueback Square in
could
West
be some
Hartford.
surprise guests.
There could be.
There.
There's a rumor.
Jim's band, the Shinolas, by the way, I have to sort of say it because I don't think he really can. They really are a lot of fun, and it's one of these bands that kind of play anything. When other guest artists do show up and play with them, they're always kind of amazed at how good everybody is and how fast they can learn material. So they're loads of fun. You never know what you're going to get at a Shinolas gig. So what time do you start at Blueback?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. All right.
Home by 10.
The floor is yours, Ms. Dugan.
Nice. I'm going to endorse street style photography this week. One of my favorite blogs is The Sartorialist, and Scott Schumann is the photographer there. And I believe this week or last week, one of our sort of Hartford favorites, Hartford Prince, launched Hartford Handsome, which is sort of the Hartford version of street style, looking directly at handsome men like you two
Colin,
fellows.
did you get the call? Because I didn't
Actually,
get a call.
I did. And I did, or they were here, and I suggested that they photograph my son instead. And I think we've settled on the idea that maybe they will photograph me and my son.
Nice.
Jeez,
2 for 1.
Because my phone didn't ring. I don't know what happened.
It's just a matter of
It'll
time.
win. It'll ring. And then my sort of lowbrow endorsement is Goldbergers. It's burger season here. I guess all over the country. It's summertime, right? And so Goldbergers is my lowbrow endorsement. I went there for the first time this week, based off of some foodie friends and a restaurateur who said, "You gotta go, you gotta go."
Is that the one that's in Newington? Where's Goldbergers?
Yes, on Main Street in Newington. Yeah, great. You can build your own burger, but they've got an incredible menu of sort of burger creations, so good and local, which we love. And then that gives me the perfect segue into what we're doing over at Heartbeat, which is looking at food security broadly through our Youth Play Institute program, which has performances August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and production of Thuk, which is by the Indian Ensemble, where we're bringing actors from Bangalore to tell the story of hunger as it affects both us here in America and them there in India. So
sounds exciting.
Yeah,
a lot going on.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that sounds great. I actually, something Jim said just made me remember this. You know the song "Strange Brew" by Cream?
I do. I think
that was in that movie.
It was in the movie last
night.
night. Yeah, it was on
And
Snowpiercer.
I heard that. I used to love that song, but it's been 30 years at least since
She's
that.
a witch of trouble on electric broom. If you don't, all right. Never
Yes.
mind.
Is that the First Nose sing-along?
And
And it's Cream.
yeah, and it actually that song's really appropriate in terms of its title with what was going on the screen at the time. But I just thought, wow, that is such a great song, and I never listened to old Cream songs that I used to love so much. So I'm endorsing that song, "Strange Brew" by Cream. Also, this wonderful movie called The Dance of Reality that is playing in New York. It played here, but it's not playing here anymore. Sorry, but it's the opposite of Snowpiercer in many ways. It's sort of surreal, and it's really sort of about emotions. But it's a crazy wild by this Chilean director who's 85, and it's sort of like an autobiography through surrealism about himself. It's just a really great movie called The Dance of Reality. I recommend it.
I heard other raves about it. It was at Real Art Waves until Wednesday, and I had hoped to see it. I hope to see it somewhere.
It's in New York this week, supposedly.
Right. I don't think I could do that. But all right, so I'm going to endorse a jazz venue, a relatively new jazz venue, and we need that because we lost Japanalia up here in Hartford. The Side Door in Old Lyme. It's part of the Old Lyme Inn. It's very pretty too. I mean, if you want to see jazz in kind of a nice environment, they've made this room very pretty. It holds about 70 people, I think. They're bringing all kinds of acts. Some people local, but really like a lot of people coming in from New York to play gigs there. I was there Friday night. The cover was $20. The drinks were not super expensive. You could get some food from the kitchen if you wanted to. They've got a really lovely, grand piano, Yamaha grand piano there to make everybody sound good. So there's somebody there tonight. They have a schedule stretching into the winter. In the winter, Fred Hirsch and Bill Charlap and a whole bunch of people are coming through too. So it's a full schedule there.
What's it called again?
It's called The Side Door in Old Lyme. Very nice. You look like you either know about it or have been there.
I do. I've got a lot of jazzers in my life. So.
Yeah. So it's. I was really impressed by what a good venue this was, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I want to endorse. I should have endorsed these guys a long time ago. The Bridge in Middletown. They make tofu and do you say seitan or saitan? I've never. I eat seitan. How do you say it?
Seitan.
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 You say
I like to say Satan, but if you're going to buy that kind of stuff, I mean, first of all, once again, they are local, and their tofu is great, and their seitan is great. The problem is you don't really know where you can get what. For example, in West Hartford, as far as I can tell, the Bishop's Quarter Whole Foods carries the seitan, but the West Hartford Center Blueback Whole Foods carries the tofu. That doesn't really make any sense to me.
So confused.
It's very confusing. But if you can get this, it's in a very unadorned kind of packaging and stuff. But the tofu is really good. I mean, you can fry it up and it won't crumble and do nasty tofu things too. And seitan, is inherently if you have celiac disease, just ignore everything I'm saying because that's a wheat gluten and it'll probably kill you. There's very quickly going to be an artist jubilee at the Pond House on July 31st. 31st. The reason I'm saying that is it benefits Ann Cubberley's incredible Nightfall, which is coming up this October, which I'm usually involved in, as is Wolfie, as are a lot of people, and it's certainly a wonderful thing. I have other things I could endorse, but I'll endorse them another day. I think I want to just thank this great panel. It's been so great to meet a brand new nose panelist who, as we say, has taken like this. Yeah, use some Snowpiercer sound effects. She has taken like this to like a duck to water. All right, we'll be back on Monday with the Scramble. Thanks for listening today. You can bring up the music now.
Hitting on New Britain, Vernon, I already said that one. Avon, Farmington, yeah. On the radio.